You guys ready to rock? I said, are you guys ready to rock? You see, because as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to command a stage like the great Jim Morrison or shred a guitar like the mighty and powerful Jimi Hendrix. Problem was, I couldn't play the guitar and everyone told me I should stop singing. But here's what I learned. I learned I was pretty good at sales. And then my instrument of choice became my cell phone. And when my cell phone became my musical instrument of choice, I was living the dream. I was rocking and rolling and helping people save money on their car insurance, right? But here's the reality. I learned that in order to take the leap into superstardom, you need to take a step back, because what was happening was I was playing every instrument. I was doing all the work, A to Z, not just A to B, but A to Z. And that's when it clicked. You see, I needed to take a step back. I needed to stop playing the music. I needed to start writing the music and leading the band. See, at one point in my life, I was number 9 in the country as an insurance agent. I was rocking the stage. I was crushing it, man. I was making money, I was living the life, and I was owning the stage like Freddie Mercury did there at Live Aid. Nothing could have been better. But the problem became when I wanted to leave, I realized I was replaceable. And that hurt me because I thought I was a rock star. And while I was a rock star, there was no band. There was no infrastructure, no tour bus, and nothing. I was replaced immediately. That's me looking sad, because I was. And when I was replaced immediately, I realized what I was saying earlier, which is that I needed to take that step back so that I could take that step forward. And I realized I needed to do it on my own. I needed to take the leap into being a visionary. So I said I wanted to launch my own company. Enter SafeShield Insurance, a full-service insurance brokerage that I launched from the ground up with a commitment and a vision to doing things differently on my own terms. And this time, it wasn't about me as the lead singer. It was about building a band, assembling a cast of characters that could help us so the music never stopped. And the music hasn't stopped. But here's the thing. In order to reach the next level, you need to be comfortable with delegation. And that was the hardest thing for me. Because delegation means you're releasing some of the things that made you that great rock and roller in the first place. And the very first time I delegated a task, it was literally as simple as someone sending me an email and me forwarding it to my team and saying, man, I don't want them to do this. I should be doing it. But I realized that all great leaders, they always talk about delegation and how important delegation is into having them reach their goals. So when I sent my staff that email, it stressed me out beyond belief. But nothing stressed me out more than one of my best friends, Duke. He was getting married, and he said, we're going to Prague for my bachelor party. And I'm just like, dude, that fucking sucks. Because that's really far, and I don't know if you know this, but I just launched a company, but like, we're doing this, you know? So the reality was, we were going to Prague, okay? That's a round trip of just about 8,000 miles. Now, I had about 2 months to prep for this, and I said, well, fuck, I better figure this out, you know? Person like Tony Peck up here. You see, but the thing was, I assembled a group of bandmates. And I decided to delegate. I put together lists, Google Sheets, Post-it notes, everything you could ever imagine, probably to a fault. My team, there was no way they could have messed up because I wrote everything down in my illegible handwriting and they had to figure it out. And you know what? I got on the plane. And the reason I got on the plane, most importantly, was that I realized that I wasn't going to build a business that I couldn't step away from. Because I wanted to be able to step away from my business and the music could continue playing. But like I said, this was the first time I was allowing myself to delegate. So when I got to Prague, this was me. I was checking every single email, kind of like when Taylor Swift releases a new album, you can't stop listening to it. That was me. That was me. And delegation was the hardest thing ever. But guess what? I'll tell you what. Here's what. My team, not only did they do a great job, and not only did they survive, but they thrived. And it was at that moment in time that SafeShield Insurance's rhythm, it sounded beautiful. And we were firing on all cylinders. And that allowed me to take that step back and realize that in order to continue growing, the things that I was best at was driving revenue, focusing on strategy and setting a long-term vision for success so that my band continued playing. You see, when you're so caught up in the grind, you can't step back and hear the full sound of the band, which sometimes can be deafening. But sometimes if you listen to the band, it will help you reach that next level of superstardom when you can take yourself backwards so that you can go 10 steps forwards. You see, and that allowed me to dream bigger, plan smarter, and lead with intention because my head was out of the music. I was now planning the set lists. Every set list was tied to something that aligned with our growth. And it was all about all of the time that I now had from stepping back because gone were the days of me selling 20 policies in a week. Now I was focused on the bigger picture. I was focusing on assembling a group of people that could help us sell 20 policies so that I could focus on that bigger picture, which was writing the set list. And guys, that's when I went from writing the songs to writing the albums. You see, this is my favorite part of the speech. For those of you that don't know, you will now. I am a huge fan of the Grateful Dead. Anybody a Deadhead in here? Love it. Okay, so I'm a monster fan of the Deadhead, and for those who are not fans of the Grateful Dead, in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, the Grateful Dead were more than just a band, you see. They were truly just iconic. They were culture. They were a movement. All of their superfans, they were called Deadheads. You're like, Austin, this is A to B. Why are you talking about the Grateful Dead? Here's why, okay? Because the Grateful Dead taught us so many lessons in this life, but none greater than this. In the 90s, Jerry Garcia, the founder, lead guitarist, singer, whatever you want to call him, he passed away. And he was the heart and soul of the Grateful Dead. And it was at that moment that the surviving members of the Grateful Dead had an opportunity. They could have said, the music stops here. But you know what happened? The Grateful Dead endured. They continued to play, and you know what they showed us in that unbelievable lesson? The hippie band who talked about smoking pot and half of the crowd was on acid. You know what they showed us there? That any band, any great company, and anything you can imagine is greater than just one person because after Jerry Garcia died, the music never stopped. And new guitarists stepped in, not to replace Jerry Garcia and not to replace the legend of Jerry, but to continue the legacy of what the Grateful Dead had built. Now, to me, that is true leadership. It's so much more than being buried in the day-to-day. You see, a vessel, they just play the notes. A visionary, they write the notes. But at the end of the day, what you need to focus on when you're taking that step back to grow your business exponentially, you need to remind yourself of three key things. You need to work on the business, not just in it. Otherwise, you're gonna get caught up in the sound. You need to build systems so that your bandmates can shine too, because it's not all about you. It takes a village. And number three, you're gonna wanna create space to cast a wider net so that you can build something that lasts. You want the music to keep playing even after you're gone. That is the definition of success. So I ask you, are you ready to take the leap? Because the problem is, when you're too caught up in the grind, you can't hear the music play. Because real leaders, they don't wait for permission. They step up, they take the mic, and they make themselves heard. Or, as one of my all-time favorites, and just like the guy who played me up here, John Bon Jovi said, not just gonna be another face in the crowd, they're gonna hear your voice when you shout it out loud, because it's your life. And I end with one thing. Are you gonna make the leap? Because going from stuck to succeeding is making the leap from vessel to visionary.